The truth is I don't really give a shit about the learning phase. What's up, marketers? Today's video is very serious. We are going to talk about a very serious subject today, which is the learning phase on Facebook ads. So what is so serious about this video, you might ask? A ton of people lately have been bombarding me with the question, won't that trigger the learning phase in regards to something that I show on this YouTube channel or on Twitter? So in this video, I'm gonna explain why everything you think you know about the learning phase on Facebook ads in 2022 is wrong. But first things first, what is the learning phase on Facebook ads? So the learning phase is the period when the algorithm still has a lot to learn about the ad set. This often occurs when you just launch a new ad set or a campaign. The idea here is that the algorithm is still trying to learn about your target audience and the new creative that you just launched. So oftentimes during the learning phase, your results are going to be worse and your costs are going to be higher. This is at least the theory anyways. So again, commonly the learning phase happens after you launch a new ad set or a new campaign, but you can also trigger the learning phase by making several changes to your ad set or even to your ad. The idea here is too that Facebook has said that you need to get 50 optimization events out of a single ad set during a week period to exit the learning phase, i.e. you need to have 50 tracked purchases on a single ad set to get out of the learning phase. But anyone who has actually ran ads on Facebook knows that oftentimes you can technically exit the learning phase without getting those 50 optimization events. And again, the whole danger about the learning phase is that Facebook says that your costs are going to be higher if your ads are in the learning phase. So they have several best practices to help people not trigger the learning phase as much. And here's what they are. Number one, don't edit your ad until it's out of the learning phase. I actually really don't like this suggestion because oftentimes if you launch a new creative, you can often tell it is a flop way before you exit the learning phase. So if you wait to get out of the learning phase to do something about that poorly performing creative, you're probably just gonna end up wasting a lot of money. Number two, avoid unnecessary edits to the ad set so that you can avoid triggering the learning phase. Again, this is something I'm a little skeptical on, but I do think it brings up a good point. You don't wanna be tinkering with your ad sets every single day. Number three, avoid high ad volumes. I actually really agree with this. So essentially what this means is don't have so many ad sets, don't have so many ads inside of your ad sets. I still see the best results coming out of accounts that are using account consolidation. So they only have a limited amount of campaigns and a more limited amount of ad sets as well. And they are testing less than anywhere from 3 to 6 ads inside of each of their ad sets. Unless using dynamic creative testing, then it's totally fine to have 10 different videos and images inside of that dynamic creative testing ad set. And of course, using realistic budgets. You definitely don't want to set too low of a budget. I recommend at least testing your ad sets at $50 a day or more, depending on your budget. But again, more on that later. So the next thing is what triggers the learning phase, right? Because I think there is a lot of confusion around the action items that can actually trigger the learning phase. And Facebook spells this out pretty clearly. So at the campaign level, the ways that you can trigger the learning phase again are budget and bid cap adjustments, and even bid strategy. And going back to the idea about the budgets, what we found at Thesis is that if you are increasing or decreasing your spend by 20% or less, generally you're not gonna be triggering the learning phase. Now at the ad level, any change you make at the ad level, except for potentially changing the ad name, is going to be triggering the learning phase. So if you're changing the link, if you're changing the headline, if you're changing any part of the creative, you are going to be triggering the learning phase. And at the ad set level, there's also many ways that you can trigger the learning phase through your targeting, your placements, your optimization, and several other different things that I'm just gonna show on the screen. Pausing for over 7 days is a new one though. That's a good thing to keep in mind. So I wanna answer directly a few reasons why the learning phase just really isn't that important. And I actually wrote something about this on Twitter recently and someone made a response to it that really stood out to me, which is that the learning phase is kind of silly because ads are always in learning regardless of whether or not they're in the learning phase or not. And anyone who's spent any amount of time on Facebook ads knows this. An ad creative will fatigue, a target audience will stop being as effective, and ultimately you're just always gonna have to revert back to being a good marketer and making better creatives. And because of this, because it all goes back to creative, you're gonna learn that triggering the learning phase is absolutely necessary. It is absolutely the lesser of the two evils because you always need to inject new creative into your ad campaigns and you're always going to need to increase or decrease your budgets depending on how performance is. There's literally no other option. And in my experience, there's been really limited circumstances where I've looked at an account and I thought, oh, the reason why this is not performing well is because of the learning phase. In fact, really the only reasons I would ever look at the learning phase and tell a client, oh, I think that your account isn't working because you're still in the learning phase, is if they're not doing account consolidation and they have way too many ads, way too many ad sets, and their budget is being spread super thin. I really think that that's what Facebook and their marketing experts are trying to emphasize, is this idea of account consolidation, but instead it's trickled down into this massive fear of triggering their learning phase in any regard. Which again, if you're adding new creatives and these are new good creatives that you have a lot of strategy behind and you're building on your learnings from, this is a very good thing. So again, the only time that I really see the learning phase being a big problem is if you're not consolidating your account structure and you have too many campaigns, you have too many ad sets, and you're not actually putting enough budget behind those tests, behind those audience tests, behind those creative tests. I mean, the entire account is a test, right? And you're not putting enough budget in it so that it can actually get out of learning limited. So sometimes actually when you're in your ad accounts, right, you're gonna see that something's still in learning or it's in something called learning limited. And learning limited is essentially telling you, hey, you don't have enough budget here for Facebook to feel like it can properly optimize. So again, it's back to that idea about you need 50 optimization events to get out of the learning phase. Again, sometimes you are going to get out of the learning phase even without reaching those 50 optimization events. I see this all the time. But if Facebook is not able to actually get out of learning and you still have too low of a budget, it's going to tell you by putting that learning limited sign on your ad set. So if you find that your ad sets or your campaigns are really stuck in learning, I would take a really good look at your budgets and make sure that you are not spreading it way too thin, because really then yes, you are never going to get out of learning and you're not actually giving the algorithm enough juice to find the people that are gonna be your customers. But if you're worried about triggering the learning phase because of adding new creatives, that actually tells me that you're probably playing it way too safe and you're not actually able to teach the algorithm how to go and find new people that are eventually going to be your customers. And that's it. I'm actually super interested to hear from you guys if you agree or disagree with this video. So be sure to let me know in the comments below, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.